That's true. I mean, one of the things I love about in the groups that we do, and New Jersey Authors Network also does South Jersey Writers Group, the South Jersey Women Authors. When you get a lot of authors together, you hear all kinds of different stories, and everyone has a different path. Jennifer, your road to publication is totally different from Laura's.
I am traditionally published. That means I didn't take the self-publishing route, mainly because I like someone to make sure that I'm good enough before I go, because when you write something, for me, I'm never really sure if what I've written might be good to anybody else as it is to me. But my first publication, I had written my third novel, and I was going to try to get it published. The first two I just really wrote for fun, and a friend of mine told me she was going to try to submit to an anthology. So I figured, all right, let me look at that, and it was a picture. It's this picture of this girl standing in the snow in a red dress, and we had to write a story about that, but the only caveat was that it could not be about Little Red Riding Hood. So I came up, being a science fiction writer, I came up with this really odd story about this city in the future where everybody lives and they can't leave or they'll die because of a disease. And so this girl risks her life to go out into the snow once a month to bring medicine to people, and it ended up turning into a love story that she has with this doctor that's out there. So I wrote it, I submitted it, and I got a request for a rewrite, which means they kind of liked it, but they really wish that it didn't happen in the story. So I thought it over, oh, what the heck, I only spent a couple of weeks writing it, why not try it? It's not that big of a deal. So I rewrote it, they emailed me back and said they really liked it, they'll let me know, and 2 weeks later I got the okay for publication. So that was very odd. That was my first submission ever, and it was accepted. You almost never hear that, though. So it was really good to me. I have had rejection since then, so it's not good, but so that's the way I got published.
Did you have your book with Musit Up Publishing out yet?
That's out now, yeah.
That is out now. Because we actually have ended up with the same publisher, which is kind of common, kind of uncommon. There's so many publishers, there's so many books. And I had done a lot of newspaper work and magazines and journalism and web content, and then at some point I just said, I want to get back to the horror. I spend all this time writing legitimate, regular articles, even creative nonfiction is one of the terms, and I thought I have to get all the vice and all the scary and all the evil things out somewhere. So I went back to doing fiction and submitted and was published, and now I have a whole series going with that franchise, which is very crazy and very difficult. The erotica, I don't know if we can talk about that tonight or not. That one I had a conditional acceptance with, where they wanted a few changes and then was back and accepted. No, Eternal Press. You also came from a different school. You went through all kinds of schooling and education and psychology and then said, let's put that in a book.
Right, I went to school for biology with minors in psychology and criminology, and it turned out that all that money I spent in tuition, I couldn't find a job that I actually wanted to do. So I was unemployed for a little while, and I was reading a lot, because that's what you do when you're bored and unemployed and your faith was off. And I was reading a lot of crime fiction, and I decided that all the crime fiction I was reading, everyone was focused on finding the bad guy. It was always about the detectives, it was always about the FBI, the cops, everything like that. And for once I wanted to read something where it was focused on the bad guy. Why is the bad guy a bad guy? I wanted the people to root for the bad guy getting away. Quick, the cops are coming, get out of there, like that kind of thing. So I started writing that years ago. Put it aside, I got a job, yay! Still didn't like it, that's not the point. Coworkers read over my shoulder when I worked on it on downtime. They said it was really good. And I was like, really? So years later, when self-publishing came about, I did some research, actually a lot of research, and I decided that I could keep creative control if I did it independently. I would keep my rights if I did it independently, and the royalties kind of work out the same, because though I pay freelance vendors for my editing and my graphic design and that kind of stuff, I get more royalties. So it kind of balances out a little bit. So that's the route I took.
Continue on that. Tell us about all the editing process that you do. Do you revise as you go, chop it up, tear it up, outline it?
I actually do pretty much everything. I revise as I go, because I can't write another chapter if I know the previous one is riddled with typos. After I finish my first draft, I revise it several more times completely, and then I send it out to a beta team of 5 other authors, all different levels of experience. And they send me back comments, you should change this, you should add more to this is boring. kill someone soon, I'm bored, something like that. So then I take all those suggestions into account, and I make more revisions. I go through it 2 more times. Then I send it out to my professional editor. She works out of Australia. She works for a branch of Harlequin. So she's professional and also does freelance for independent authors like myself. And she goes through it a couple of times. I make more changes. Then I send it to a proofreader. They send it back, make sure all my comments are there, all my homophones are right. And my homophones, my there, and there.
Yeah.
So then I go through it another couple times, and I send it to the formatter because I have no technical abilities whatsoever. And they make sure all of my headers are correct and all of my spacing is good, and then I read through it just to make sure. Then finally it gets published. It actually takes longer to revise and all that than it does to write it.
You know, a lot of people, are retiring now or coming out of work and saying they finally want to write that book. There's a lot of opportunities. You can talk to your computer now. There's software that does it for you. People want to write their memoirs, their journaling. And some people are so excited. You finished, it's such an exasperated feeling. And then you realize how much more work follows. And I am completely anal. I will diagram stuff on walls. I will draw things out on papers and have outlines and not really hard old-fashioned things. That's another thing that holds people up. They think you have to have everything outlined and pre-planned, A and then B and then C. But I have an idea that we go with the flow of the character, and then you have your editor from your publisher, your line editor, you read it again. I read everything out loud, so it takes me forever. So now when you're in franchises and series where you have 500-page books, then yes, you're doing a lot of find and replace and looking for, which, ye old spelling did I use in this medieval one. And Jennifer, you do science fiction, YA.